welcome. My name is Untitled, and I will be presenting this presentation of Installomator. I'm currently employed by IT in Denmark, and I have provided some details here, and you can find me as Tilegard on Slack and on Twitter, and you can find me on GitHub as Tile with a capital T. So in this presentation, I also would like to just comment a bit. IT is named for environment, and we try to give something back to the environment by planting trees whenever people buy a Mac from us or have some other services that we include in the MSP program. We will buy 1 tree per user per month, for instance. So we are pretty proud of that. So here we will be talking about Installomator. And I know that we have been talking about that before from the team of the Installomator collaborators here. So I will give a brief introduction and go on here. So Installomator can be found on GitHub, and I have provided the link here. If you need some more introduction to what Installomator is and what it can do for you and how you will be using this to install software in your environments, I can recommend Armin Briegel's presentation from last year. You are also very welcome to ask us questions on the Slack channel. And in this presentation, we will be talking about labels, and labels in this for us is actually kind of a recipe of how to download the latest version of some software, knowing what version that is, and how to verify it through Gatekeeper, and then we can install it. So that's basically a label. That is a specific kind of software that we want support for. And how can we actually create those ourselves? So I will be presenting the agenda here, and for this presentation, okay. And I will show just a little bit how we install Installomator into Jamf Pro and making sure this is the released version of Installomator. I will show some tools and techniques in terminal. I will be setting up GitHub Desktop. We will create a label and include a version number in it because we are very eager and very much interested in making sure all the labels have version checking in them. And then we will make a pull request in order for this addition of a label to be included in a future GitHub or in future Installomator release. And we will use the new label in Jamf Pro as well in different ways. And then we will actually end up creating another label. So what I will be showing you first is to download the latest release of Installomator, and then we will install it into Jamf Pro. And I will be starting out here with a picture of Copenhagen and the new harbor area, Nyhavn, and we will go on here. I will go to the GitHub page. This is the GitHub for Installomator, and on the right side, I will just show just a little bit how the page looks. On the right side, we have releases, and I'm clicking on the specific latest release that will be showing there. And you can download Installomator as a PKG, or you can just download the source code. And for this use in Jamf Pro, we need the source code. And what do we do after we have downloaded that? We need to import the script into Jamf Pro. And let's look at the beautiful planetarium of Copenhagen here, and we will be starting out and downloading the download that we had before. I will open that. I will expand the zip archive, and in this folder we have various files and folders, and what we need is the Installomator.sh file. That is the first one. So I will go in and create a new script in Jamf Pro called Installomator. And the script here, I will just drag and drop this. This is the latest release, version 9.2 at this time. I will go to the top and scroll a bit down because debug is on, and that will never install anything on the client. So we need debug removed, and then I save this script, and we can now see it in the list of scripts. So after this, we can actually create a policy and install this on our clients. So, but that will be shown later. I will talk a little bit about the terminal. We have a lot of terminal commands. If you are new to this, I will just show a little examples of some commands that we use a lot. And there is a command called man. And if you write man and then the name of another command, like the 4 ones that I listed on this slide, then you can get a kind of a manual page out of this and maybe get some help on how to use it. If you are very much a beginner in this, I don't think that these manuals will always be very easy to read and understand, but it's at least a place to get some more knowledge about a certain command. That can be very helpful. In this section, we will talk a lot about some text tools, I would call them, as well as XML tools. We will use cut and tr that can translate something. We will use grep and set and org for some text manipulations when we download the HTML code or something from a website, and we will go in and look at details there. And we also use the xpath command for looking through some XML codes. Here I can just recommend, we will not use it in this presentation, but if you need to look at PKGs, look at suspicious package, which is very, very great tool for looking into what PKGs are actually installing. If you need some more GUI tool to look at for some of these things that have been talked about here, this can be a very great tool for PKGs. All right. We also use regular expressions, just a little bit. And if you want to know more and understand better what all these regular expressions is all about, I have learned a lot from this specific session by William Smith. There's also some web pages that can help you in designing some of these regular expressions, and there's actually main pages for this in the terminal. And the main pages would probably be the ones I would read the last. So let's continue. Regular expressions, you can actually write, if you search for something or want to match, it's about matches, then dot star will find any character and any amount of them. So a dot means any character, and the star means that 0 or more of them can be there. So if you need to match on the dot itself, then we have to escape it using a backslash. We can also match something in the beginning of the line or an end of the line by using, I would call it the hat sign in front of text, as well as the dollar for the line ending. We can match on usually most version numbers by put them into a square bracket. And in this situation, the dot actually means a dot. So what we can find here is we can find any number from 0 to 9, including a dot. And those are in the square brackets, so we will, whatever order they're coming in, we don't matter. And then we put a star in the end, so we will have 0 or more of them. That's usually how a version number will look. We can also just find numbers, or we can find the characters from A to Z, or if we don't care about the case, we can both find small letters and capital letters and all those. And there is a lot of more things about this that we can use, but that will not be used here. So we will have to create a label here, and the documentation for Installomator is found directly on the Installomator page, as well as we also provide a wiki page. And we will go to the wiki page later on in some of my videos. But I will just put a note here that the wiki page is being developed further, and all of the things that I've written here will eventually end up in the wiki page as well. In a label, we have certain variables or certain fields, you could say. So we need a name in our label, and this is the name of the app, and we will use this to search for this app which is installed on the system of the user. So we need a real name here for this type. We also have a certain type of what kind of installment it is. Is it an app on a DMG? Then DMG is the type. Is it directly an Apple package that we are downloading? Then PKG is the type. Is it an app that has been zipped? Then it's zip, that is the file type, or TBZ, that's the same thing. We could also have a package inside the DMG, then we will use that, or a package inside a zip archive, or we can have an app in a DMG that has been zipped, and then we can have an updater only thing, and I will not show all of these, I will just mention it here. The updater only will have some update mechanisms only. We can have a field that is not mandatory. The package ID for if the install thing is a PKG, then we can actually look for this package ID bundle identifier to see if it has already been installed and get the version that has been installed there. We need, and this is a mandatory field, the download URL in order to download this software. We can provide some options. If curl cannot download this directly, we can add some options, extra headers or something, in order for the particular web server to give us the result that we need. We have a field that we very, very much recommend. It's not mandatory, but it's actually something that we will ask for if you are providing a label to us where it's not included. App new version. We need, hopefully, all our labels to know what is the latest version that it will actually install. And this is because we need, we don't want to bother the user with, we need to install the latest version of this software if it's not needed. So it's very much a great benefit for the user that we have this app new version field. We can also use a specific version key, and the version key is something from the info plist file that exists in an app. I will show this later so you can see more about it. We can also provide, if you are putting in this specific function in the label, then we can, for like command line tools that can answer what kind of version they have. If we don't have any other mechanisms to find the version, then we can run this function to figure out what version it is. And then we need the field expected team identifier, which is the team identifier of the developer. And there is in our documentation how to find that. But we also have a script that will help us building these labels from the beginning. And then we have some other label fields, and I will not go too much through all of these. We are not using them in this presentation, but we can create some rather advanced label creations here with some CLI installers or update tools and things. Microsoft labels are using a lot of update tools, and the CLI installer is used for Adobe Reader installations. I will show it in a bit. So a simple label could be something like CyberDoc here. It's a time of zip, so that means that the app has just been zipped. And there is a download URL. We have a new version, the app new version thing, and we have the expected team ID. So this is a fully functioning label, and that will work out like this. So sometimes if the developer of this app will move their, if in this case they move their changelog, then of course we will have a problem in Installomator, and we need to fix this. We need to know about the problem first, so please file an issue to us so we can look at it or do something else about it, or maybe some other people will help out with the label creation. Hopefully a lot will help out after this presentation. So what we also have is a GitHub label here. This is just another example. And in this particular case, if you are going into looking at this particular GitHub page and are interested in the Marathon Infinity or the other games from there, we need to specify the Marathon Infinity Mac version. There is a lot of different binaries available in one release in this situation, and we need to figure out and find the exact one. So I had to put in a regular expression to find this, and I will show this a little bit later about how to build this particular label. And then we have a very much more advanced label here that is functioning very well, and that is how to install the Adobe Creative Cloud desktop app. So there is an installer tool included in this app that we will use, and we will using CLI to the command line interface to install this in a certain way. So there's something that we need to know about this particular software that it can actually do this, but this will work very well. And in this case, we also ask for what kind of platform you're on. Are you having Apple Silicon or the old Intel mechanisms? So, so this is an example of this. All right. Let's see how we are interrogating or how we are connected to the GitHub thing. I will recommend in this video to use the GitHub desktop. So GitHub desktop is an app from the GitHub cycle. So if you have an account on GitHub, you can log into the GitHub app, and then you can connect and apply what we call pull requests to the Installomator thing. And I will open up Installomator in here so you will have just a beginner's idea about what it actually is. And we will add a new label in the correct folder. So with a view of Copenhagen here from the central Christiansborg Palace, that is where the government is, I will continue this. And we will go into Safari here and look at the GitHub page. I will go to the wiki, and we have actually a lot of wiki pages already, and we will probably get more later. And here we have something about how to create these pull requests. And there is the link for GitHub desktop, and I will just download the GitHub desktop. Obviously, that has to be installed. So, but I will jump through that, and then I will go back to Installomator because it's already installed in this video, and I will go click on the green button and say I want to open this project in my desktop, in my GitHub desktop. Then it will clone all of this, and then you actually have the possibility to open this, and I will be showing this just in TextMate, but you can use whatever it is that you prefer. It's very important to know that the fragments folder are where you have to post your changes, and below there's a labels folder, and for instance I just clicked on the Adobe label there. We have the assembly script there, and if I run that, then it will take all the fragments and put them together and build a new version of Installomator. It is located there. So you get and we don't need that version. We don't actually care about that, but this is a new build one. And what you saw there, because no label name was provided to the assembly script, then it will just return all the labeled names that it supports. So so that is one way to see if Installomator supports something. You can maybe look at that. What I'm missing in this presentation is to actually show how you will create a new branch. So I will show that or talk about that. But you have a file or a menu inside the GitHub desktop to create a new branch, and you just create any branch that will be created on your own site. All right. So in order to build labels, I will recommend to start out with this script that is called buildlabel.sh. It is located below the utils folder, and you can download it from there. That just need to be provided with a URL, and then it can run. So let's look at how we can build an easy label. So I will use the buildlabel.sh script and add it, giving the URL to the latest version of, in this situation, the Marathon Infinity latest version on the GitHub, the download URL that you will actually be getting from the website itself. And then it will run through, download the software and look at the software and figure out, no, this was actually coming from GitHub. And then in the end, it will show me the Marathon Infinity label fully labeled out here in a fully working label. This is actually the exact same text as I shown in the label before. So this script is actually very neat for this, and it is a very, very good starting point for the software that you download. You still have to verify, because it will just get the expected team ID in this situation, and we have to make very, very certain that we are actually downloading the latest version here, and it's the right version that is not with any middleman in it or anything. All right. So let's look at an example here. So I have found a software called WhatRoute, and I want support for this software. This is a networking utility software. We have a URL for this download. We can see in this URL, it's including in the version number 250. And I just provide this to the build label. And what is coming out of this script is a WhatRoute label here. I will get this fixed download URL in it because that's the only thing it had. And I could look further through this output because we are actually providing some more output in it that I wasn't mentioning before, but if there was some redirects or something like that, we are showing that. Sometimes the redirects will show some version numbers. But here we have the direct download URL from the page itself. So how do we figure out what is actually the latest download URL when we have a version here? So we also need to know what the latest version is, and I will show this in two different ways in this situation here, and tell you why I would prefer one of those and not the other. All right. So let's see this. I have downloaded this software, and I can now look at what is actually inside the app. The app is always a bundle. It's actually a folder with this software in it, and we can show it as a package content in Finder if I right click on it. And that will be able to show me the contents that I've shown in the window behind. And there is an info plist that I talked about also previously. And what I can see in the info plist is something that in this situation is just the most easiest thing, is that the CF bundle short version string has been filled out with the number 2.5.0. And there is actually also the CF bundle version, like 3 lines below that, with a different number. And so the preferred way, the default way, is to use the CF bundle short version string. And if that exists, then we don't want to do anything more. What we have is to look further below in this info plist, and we are very lucky that they are using a software update feed URL. So I have highlighted that there. So that was a very easy thing. We can go in and look at what is actually coming out of that upcast URL there. So I will go in and curl this URL and download that. And I have highlighted some red points out there because that is how we find the information later on. So we have the RSS feed, we have a channel, then we have an item, and in this situation we will look for something inside the item. So if I scroll further down, we have an enclosure inside the item, and there we have a URL field, and we also have the Sparkle short version string, as well as the Sparkle version string. So we could have used probably either way, but I can at least see that in this XML stream we have both of these. So I will use the ones that I highlighted here in purple, so for this example. So what will that give us? I will explain a little bit about the xpath tool. The xpath needs to be run with -e as a parameter, at least if you are on Big Sur in Monterey. I cannot remember if Catalina is also there, but on previous incarnations, and that could be on Catalina, there's no -e. So that was added later on. But we need a path to this specific field that we want to look at. And I have shown two different examples here. And if you look at it, you can see this. I want the first version or the first field. So the top example is the one that I would use always, because that will require the field that I'm looking for to actually exist in this. If I move this square bracket 1 and look for just the first item, I will be returned with the first item no matter what it includes. So if the field is not there, I just get nothing from this return. So that was something that I learned on some of the Omni titles from Omni Group, as they could post news without a URL. So I had to figure this out. So we need to search for the field, and the field in this case is either URL or in our example here, Sparkle colon short version string. So that's how it is. All right. So we also use a cut tool. Cut can actually go in and use a delimiter, and the delimiter is the quotes in this situation put into single quotes, and then I want the second field in this example. I can also use a delimiter of white space, that would be -w, and that is something of the same kind as using org and print the $2 as shown here, but that's a little different. If you prefer one or the other, I think that cut is a little more easier usually. All right, so we want to use xpath in this example, and I will download again using curl this XML data. I will use xpath to find this URL in this situation. And what xpath will write out is it will write 2 lines that it found one node, and then like a delimiter line or something like that will show the node. And then it will give the URL feed out there. So we obviously need to figure out only to cut out what is inside these quotes. So that I will use the cut for, and set a delimiter here in this situation as the quote character, and use the second field, because that is the first field is before the first quote, the second field is after the first quote. So so that will be it, and the third field, and that is not actually there, would be after the second quote. But when I do that, I will get the entire URL. So hopefully that will also be the latest version the next time they release a new version. But obviously we don't know, but we will hope, and we will have a qualified guess that this is how it looks. So what this does, then we actually just need to do the same thing for the short version string, and we will get the 250 out there. So I can combine all of this to the WhatRoute label, and it will look like this. And just take a note here that in Installomator, we will know what version of the operating system we are running on. So we should not include the -e option to the xpath, because we will include it if it's needed on those operating systems. And if it's not needed, or if it's needed, we will put it in. So So that's just a heads up about that. That's why the -e on the xpath here is not there in the label, and it should not be there. All right. So back in TextMate, how do we add this new label there? I will add it below the labels folder. And there I will right click and add a new file. So if you are using a different text editor, it might be a little bit different, but we will just add a new file there. I will call it WhatRoute.sh, and then I will paste in this. And you should not have any more empty lines or anything, or any more descriptions or anything like that. We try to keep them as short as possible, and remember the 2 semicolons on the last line, as we are actually in the middle of a case statement inside the Installomator thing. So Installomator is one full script that we have broken up into smaller pieces, but we still need to know where we actually are. So we need this. We need to know that we are in the middle of this case statement. So I can test on my new version by using the assembly script with the WhatRoute label, and then that will run, and I have highlighted some important information to look for in the output here. It's very important to look for that we are actually getting the latest version, what it is, and what download link it actually finds, and then there will be some debug information and all that from the download, and the team ID is matching, and it will summarize in the downloader version what that was, and the CF bundle short version string comparison was the same as installed, because in this particular system it was already installed. So it didn't do anything really, but the debug mode will not install anything anyway. So this is a great log to add, so we can see what was actually done in this situation. So when you go into the GitHub desktop, in the middle top menu bar here, you can create a new branch. And this branch is called title labels here in this situation. And I usually will ask for one branch per label. So I should have named this WhatRoute instead. So, but yeah. Then the GitHub desktop will show me what differences actually exist in this situation, and it has found a new file, and I can go down in the top, in the bottom left corner, and write out what it actually is. It's a new WhatRoute label, and it has a network utility. It's a network utility, and I included the output log line in the markdown content like that, and that will give me, then I post this, I put in this, and then it will show me now you have committed this change, and then I can push it. So I can push it up, and by clicking the button on the right, and then it will change and say, now you have uploaded this to your branch. You need to create a pull request for us to see it. So if you create a pull request, you will be taken to the website on GitHub. And there you can see what it was that you wrote in the bottom left corner there about what it actually was that was changed. If you scroll down on this page, you will see the files that was changed, and in this case it was one changed file, and then we can create the pull request by clicking the green button. And now you have filed this pull request. I gave it a label of application because this is a new application, and then we can see it and measure it and see what release we need to get it into and all those things. So how do I get this new label into Jamf Pro? So I could go into the Installomator script itself and add this new label into the Installomator script. I would just put it just above the comment about the label description starts here, because then I know that my custom labels was put in just above the top of there. You can see what line number it is then, at least for version 9.2. So that's around in that neighborhood. You will find that. So that is one way to do it. What you could also do, if you needed this very quick and didn't you spend the time on creating a new label, we have a specific label. And this will also show a little bit of how you call Installomator from Jamf Pro. But we have a specific label called values from arguments. So if I call in the parameter for the values from arguments, and that is the label name in this situation. So if I was putting in the label as before, I would just write WhatRoute here and then don't have anything in the other fields. But in this situation, if I use values from arguments, I can call it as shown here, where I can give it a name and show the type and what download URL to get. And you cannot put any scripting capabilities into these fields, so it has to be the fixed version download, and as well as the fixed version for add new version. So you need to pay attention to this specific policy if you created it like this, to know that you are actually having the latest version here. So but this will work with the shipping version until we include the WhatRoute label in the next shipping version, and then we can have just call it with the WhatRoute label. I hope that makes sense. All right, we will continue with a new label that we need to create. We have grep used in some of these situations, and I can see that I am very much further ahead in time here. So I will go a little fast through. We also use set, and I hope that it makes sense what I've written here, how to search and replace text using set. We also have the translate characters. We can actually translate this. I'm not having any examples using this, but we can translate one character to another one, and we can also use awk, and I'm not using that in any examples here. So I will go through another piece here, and this is a very advanced one. So after looking at these few trees here, there is a specific display link software that could be very handy to have installed. And we actually have a release version here, as well as a download link. And look at this download link that will take me to another web page. And this another web page, I have to approve these terms and conditions. I will accept these, and then I get the download. So I have something of an URL that I'm coming to that will download, change to another URL, and change again. So this is a further advanced label, and I will go through it very quickly. All right. So this is why we need it for M1s to support maybe some USB-C monitors. So I can go in, and I started on the first URL, and I will just grab for file type equal exit, because that was part of the download link. And I get all of these downloads. And for this particular situation, we actually need the top one result. So if I need grep to return the first result, I can add -m and 1. In this situation, I also have the -i on the file type, because I need it to be case insensitive. So when I add that, I get the first version of it. And then I would like to know how the redirect happened. And if you look in the result here, there is a location field that is taking me to another URL. So I will show that here, that if I take the first URL, download that using only the headers, I can grep for location, and then I can find what is actually being redirected to. Using I and L on the curl will do that. I will return only headers. L will accept the relocation, the redirect. And then I can grep for what has come out of that. If I grep the -o, I can say I want the beginning with HTTPS and the end with exe and the regular expression .star in between, and then I get the full URL. And then I have to nest those URLs, and then I get a full first version of this download URL. But I need to figure out where there's a package to be downloaded from this new URL that I'm getting here. And I grep for that, and then I go further, and I can get the full download link in this way again. And in this way, I want to isolate the href on this using the grep, because I think that is a better match on this page. So I will get a result from href to the pkg, and then I want to use cut to find out that. And then I can nest all of this and finish my download. So this is the download link, and I can now use the build label to find what has been built from the label. And then I can use a version to find this, and I do some of the same mechanisms to find it on the first page. But I could also just find the version out of the download link in this situation. That would probably be a better option. So in the end, I will design the label like this. And this is very advanced. I included both app new versions in this situation. We could have used both, but that was it. And that was all from me in this year of JNUC. I hope it was great. Thank you.